In a break from his usual practice of skipping lunch during busy royal tours, King Charles made an unexpected stop at a food truck during his state visit to Kenya. The king decided to sample some popular local dishes at the Nairobi Street Kitchen, a modern street food market in the heart of the Westlands area. During his visit, King Charles ordered a saag paneer kathi roll wrap and a butter chicken samosa, playfully remarking that these dishes could potentially blow your head off. However, the palace had advised the chefs not to make the food too spicy for the 74-year-old monarch, ensuring a more palatable experience. Sous chef Rhoda Asio, who had the honor of preparing the king's meal, later shared her experience, describing King Charles as great and mentioning that the encounter was less formal than she had anticipated. She highlighted the popularity of Indian cuisine in Kenya and noted that the king had chosen a favorite dish that was in high demand. The purpose of the king's visit was to celebrate Kenyan culture and creativity. During the visit, he met with young creatives, including artisans, fashion designers, musicians, and artists who had received grants from the British Council. The king toured a pop-up exhibition featuring various Kenyan creative products, such as graphic novels and sustainable fish leather bags. One of the artisans, Anthenia Mwendwa, owner of the label Saba, shared her success story with the king, explaining how her designs have been featured at prestigious events like the Oscars, Grammys, and Emmys due to her commitment to a sustainable model. The king was reportedly impressed and expressed his interest in learning from different industries and fostering collaboration. Notably, the king showed a particular fondness for a stall featuring puppets from Buni Media, a company that runs an educational program in schools to teach children about environmental conservation. Through a puppet character named Matata, children are encouraged to protect local wildlife for the benefit of their communities. Nairobi Street Kitchen offers a diverse range of global food and drink options, as well as artisan products. The location also hosts live music performances and showcases local art, making it a vibrant hub for both food and culture. King Charles made an unexpected stop at a menswear stall, where he recognized a sample of gray and blue checked material that resembled one of his suits. He praised the products as marvelous and well-designed, and even considered placing a personal order. The stall, Genteel Custom-Made Suits, was described as the perfect blend of Kenyan flair and British craftsmanship. Before concluding his visit, the king visited the Desi Loco Indian street food stand, accompanied by background music from a live band, providing a delightful culinary experience. Earlier in the day, King Charles presented a medal to a Kenyan soldier who claimed to be 117 years old, making him one of the oldest men in the world. The veteran Corporal Samuel Ngamburia had served with the British Army during World War II, including deployments to Palestine and the Far East. The king commended his extraordinary service and presented him with a replacement medal during a poignant ceremony at a Commonwealth War Graves Commission cemetery, where British and Kenyan military personnel paid their respects. The king expressed his admiration for the veteran, remarking, "You're amazing. You set us a great example. You must have been living on wild locusts and honey." Corporal Mburia had kept his medals despite the challenges of the Mau Mau Rebellion, during which many Kenyan Army veterans chose to dispose of their medals to avoid being seen as collaborators. The visit showcased the rich cultural and historical ties between the United Kingdom and Kenya, celebrating creativity, craftsmanship, and shared experiences. After the conclusion of World War II, there was a profound sense of resentment among the Kikuyu people in Kenya. This resentment eventually culminated in a series of attacks in 1952, carried out by a banned secret society known as Mau Mau. The targets of these attacks were individuals loyal to the government. The escalating violence prompted Governor Evelyn Baring to declare a state of emergency in October 1952. As part of the government's response, Mau Mau leaders, including Jomo Kenyatta, who would later become Kenya's president, were detained by the authorities. During this tumultuous period, King and Queen, representatives of the British monarchy, visited Kenya. Their visit had several significant moments. They met with Sam Mattock, a prominent figure involved in identifying living veterans of World War II and procuring replacement campaign medals for them. The royal couple, along with British and Kenyan military personnel, participated in a solemn act of remembrance where they learned about the work of the Commonwealth War Graves Commission in commemorating all those who supported Britain during both World Wars. Upon their arrival at Cariocar, they were welcomed by various dignitaries, including Deputy Defense Advisor Commander Edward Black, Royal Navy, Claire Horton, the Director General of the Commonwealth War Graves Commission, and Daniel Achini, the Regional Manager for East Africa at the Commonwealth War Graves Commission. A poignant moment took place as the King and Queen walked to a memorial cross for an act of remembrance. Colonel Alexel Kiprop, the director of the Kenya Defense Forces Directorate of Military Affairs, recited the Ode to Remembrance. The last post was played by a Kenya Defense Forces bugler, followed by a minute of silence, the reveille, and the laying of a wreath by both the King and Queen at the memorial. The King was accompanied by personnel from the Kenya Defense Forces, while the Queen, who held the position of Colonel of the Grenadier Guards, was accompanied by 2 guardsmen actively participating in a military exercise in Kenya. Following this, the King met individuals involved in the future of the Cariocar site, which houses 59 Commonwealth burials from the Second World War under the care of the Commonwealth War Graves Commission. The royal visit was also marked by cultural interactions, as they were greeted at State House by a traditional dance troupe from Narok, who performed a ceremonial dance of celebration. Queen Camilla, elegantly dressed in an outfit by her favorite designer Anna Valentine, adorned herself with a diamond elephant bracelet and a necklace that belonged to her beloved grandmother from Van Cleef and Arpels. During their stay in Kenya, the King and Queen met with the Kenyan President William Ruth and the First Lady, Rachel Ruto. They posed for photographs with their hosts against the magnificent backdrop of State House, which was specially illuminated for the occasion. Additionally, the King delivered an environmental speech at the United Nations office in Nairobi. In his impassioned address, he emphasized the urgent need for action in addressing environmental challenges. He stressed the importance of collective effort, delivering parts of his speech in Swahili and earning applause from the delegates. As part of his environmental commitment, the King planted a Muthiga tree, an endangered East African greenheart species grown for medicinal purposes, outside the UN office. He wished the tree well and expressed a desire to monitor its growth. The King's visit to the UN office was met with enthusiasm from the staff, some of whom had brought their children and partners to witness the occasion. Inside the plenary, he delivered a speech to the delegates, and the UN Director General expressed deep honor at his choice of Kenya for his first state visit to Africa and a member of the Commonwealth. During his speech, the King acknowledged his long-standing concern about climate change and biodiversity loss, expressing sorrow over the devastating effects of these issues. He highlighted the severe hunger and drought faced by tens of millions of people in Africa and underscored the urgency of addressing global warming, biodiversity loss, and climate change through collective action and commitment. The King's speech received a round of applause from the audience, signifying the importance of the issues he raised. In a significant and unexpected moment during his visit, King Charles publicly expressed his greatest sorrow and deepest regret for the abhorrent and unjustifiable acts of violence committed by Britain during the colonial era. He specifically mentioned the wrongdoings against the Mau Mau rebellion in Kenya, a statement that went further than many had anticipated. Calls for an apology for historical government abuses under his late mother's reign have been ongoing, and this acknowledgement marked a significant step in addressing past grievances. During a state banquet in Nairobi, Prince Charles addressed the Kenyan president and a gathering of 350 guests, emphasizing the shared history between the United Kingdom and Kenya. He acknowledged the complexities of their relationship, including the painful and regrettable wrongdoings of the past. The Prince of Wales recognized the abhorrent and unjustifiable acts of violence committed against Kenyans during their struggle for independence and sovereignty, with no excuses for such actions. Prince Charles expressed his deep commitment to understanding these wrongs and meeting those who were grievously affected. He emphasized that while the past cannot be changed, addressing their history with honesty and openness can strengthen the friendship between the two nations today and build a closer bond for the future. Notably, Prince Charles refrained from making a direct apology, as it does not align with British government policy. Kenyan President Ruto delivered a strongly worded speech, hinting at further demands for reparations. He urged both Britain and Kenya not to deny their historical atrocities, mentioning the displacement, dispossession, and disenfranchisement of native Africans that paved the way for brutal colonialism. President Ruto considered the £20 million paid by Britain in compensation to victims of torture and repression as inadequate and called for full reparations. However, he commended Prince Charles for his visionary leadership on the issue, acknowledging his courage in shedding light on uncomfortable truths from their shared history. President Ruto expressed confidence that under Prince Charles's leadership, Kenya-United Kingdom relations would continue to prosper. Prince Charles's use of Swahili phrases, along with his impeccable pronunciation, endeared him to his audience. He spoke about the special significance Kenya holds for his family, particularly mentioning his late mother, who found out she was queen in Kenya. He also shared a heartwarming anecdote about his son, the Prince of Wales, proposing to his wife in the sight of Mount Kenya. Prince Charles concluded his speech on a positive note, using Swahili to say, Umoja ni nguvu, which translates to unity is strength. Mwangi Macharia, the head of the African Center for Corrective and Preventive Action, called for Britain to follow Germany's example in apologizing for its abuses in Namibia and funding projects to address historical injustices. The legacy of Nandi King Koitalel Arap Samoei, who led a decade-long rebellion against British colonial rule until his death in 1905, was also mentioned. The British confiscated much of his people's land and cattle. Samoei's great-grandson, Kipchoge Arap Chomu, acknowledged British contributions to Kenya, such as education and public health systems, but stressed the need for a public apology from the British government and subsequent reparations. Their Majesties King Charles and Queen Camilla were warmly received at State House in Kenya by a traditional dance troupe from Narok. The dance troupe performed a ceremonial dance of celebration to welcome the royal couple. Queen Camilla looked stunning in a blue tunic top and palazzo-style trousers designed by her favorite designer, Anna Valentine. She adorned herself with a diamond elephant bracelet and a necklace that once belonged to her beloved grandmother, from Van Cleef & Arpels. The king, not in a black tie dress code, wore a lounge suit and posed for photographs with his wife alongside their hosts, President William Ruto of Kenya and First Lady Rachel Ruto. They stood against the magnificent backdrop of State House, which was beautifully lit up for the occasion, and walked down a red carpet. During their visit, the royal couple enjoyed a lavish 8-course meal, which included dishes such as beetroot and goat cheese foam with hazelnut crumble, cream of roasted butternut, chestnut and truffle soup, Malindi lobster, and seared seafood ravioli and bisque. They also had a watercress and Stilton salad with candied apples and walnuts, a palate cleanser of lemon and raspberry sorbet, pan-seared salmon with champagne beurre blanc, and beef Wellington with cheto potatoes and minted asparagus. For dessert, they were treated to a visually stunning platter featuring miniature portions of Kenyan and British-inspired honey cake, carrot and walnut square, Earl Grey tea crumble, and Sarova chocolate cake. The meal ended with petit fours and coffee, including chocolate truffles and macaroons, served with Kenyan coffee or tea. Among the distinguished guests in attendance were Foreign Minister James Cleverly and his wife. Earlier in the day, Prince Charles and Camilla paid tribute to Mau Mau fighters and others who played a crucial role in Kenya's struggle for independence. They paused at statues of 2 freedom fighters at the Mashujaa Museum and visited the Mugomo tree at Nairobi's Uhuru Gardens, planted to mark the moment of Kenyan independence declaration, which occurred 60 years ago. The king and queen also paid their respects at the tomb of the unknown warrior and had some lighter moments during their visit. They took a warm walkabout, interacted with local children, and met with groups participating in the Prince's Trust International Enterprise Challenge. Prince Charles also visited entrepreneurs during a tech and innovation showcase in the Kenyan capital, where he admired a portrait of Queen Camilla. The king was particularly excited to visit a transformed organic holding behind Mama Lucy Kibaki Hospital, where a wide range of vegetables, herbs, chickens, and even fish were being produced. Hospital chef Nelly Njagi explained how the organic food was benefiting the patient's recovery. During the visit, the king also saw large African land snails bred by the staff and learned that their slime was used in the beauty industry for women's facial products. He marveled at the larvae of black soldier flies used to turn vegetable waste into fertilizer and was impressed by the farm's use of natural pesticides, including rabbit urine and vertical planting. He even stepped into a polytunnel where tomatoes were ripening in the warm temperatures. Mr. Kamani, the founder and CEO of City Shamba, the farm they visited, expressed his gratitude for the royal validation of their organic farming practices. The king also laid a wreath at the tomb of the unknown warrior at Uhuru Gardens, a significant moment in a trip that focused on Kenya's colonial past. He and Queen Camilla then walked to the Mugomo tree, which marked the spot where Kenya celebrated its independence by raising its own flag on December 12, 1963. The fig tree holds great historical significance as modern Kenya's birthplace, symbolizing its journey towards independence. The royal couple was informed that the tree was considered a shrine and a living memory of Kenya's tumultuous history, with a superstition that taking cuttings from it would bring misfortune. Their Majesties King Charles and Queen Camilla made a visit to Nairobi's Uhuru Gardens, an event that marked a significant moment. The king unveiled a plaque and laid a wreath at the tomb of the unknown warrior, symbolizing respect and remembrance. The royal couple's visit continued with a visit to the Mugomo tree, a historic symbol planted on the day Kenya declared its independence. In Kiswahili, Uhuru translates to freedom. Samson Malaki, the curator at the nearby Mashujaa Museum, offered insight into the tree's importance, emphasizing that it holds a special place in Kenya's history. He described the tree as not just a historical landmark, but also a shrine, signifying the country's past struggles and sacrifices. Mr. Malaki explained that various Kenyan communities make pilgrimages to the tree, where they perform cultural practices beneath its branches, including animal sacrifices, prayers, and blessings. This tree, nearly 59 years old, is expected to live up to 300 years, bearing witness to generations to come. Interestingly, it's considered a shrine, as those who attempted to cut its branches in the past were struck by lightning. Taking cuttings from the tree is strictly prohibited, and it must naturally run its course. The king showed great interest in the tree and even inquired about whether it bore fruit. Before this, their Majesties were warmly welcomed by Kenya's President William Ruto and First Lady Rachel Ruto upon their arrival at the gardens. National anthems of both the UK and Kenya were played by the Kenya Defence Forces Band. King Charles unveiled a plaque with the help of President Ruto as a symbol of their visit. They then proceeded to the tomb of the unknown warrior, where they stood in solemn silence during the playing of the last post. The king, on behalf of his visit, participated in the laying of a large wreath by two female soldiers, pausing to reflect on the significance. The royal couple engaged in a brief walkabout, greeting military families who had gathered to meet them. Prince Charles lightened the mood with a comment about the weather, saying, "Don't get too wet." During their visit, King Charles held a bilateral meeting with President Ruto, while Queen Camilla learned about the work of Mama Doing Good, a socio-economic development organization founded by the First Lady in 1997 to assist women, youth, and vulnerable individuals in Kenya. The king dressed smartly in a lounge suit, and Queen Camilla, elegant in a white crepe silk Anna Valentine dress and a diamond oyster brooch once belonging to the late Queen Elizabeth II, were greeted by President Ruto and his wife at the State House in Nairobi. Following the formalities, they posed for photographs, with the president's official residence as a backdrop. A guard of honor, formed in 2 rows, gave a royal salute, and both the UK and Kenya's national anthems were played, followed by a 21-gun salute. Prince Charles inspected the troops, walking past soldiers in their red tunics and peaked caps. A touching moment occurred when a Kenyan girl told King Charles that a computer game for aspiring entrepreneurs had given them a unique networking opportunity by allowing them to meet the king. This girl was part of a group of children from underprivileged rural areas who had been assisted by a project co-run by Charles's charity, Prince's Trust International, PTI. At the Eastlands Library, Charles and Camilla interacted with a small crowd before meeting the founders of a literary project and youngsters participating in a business simulation game to inspire them to consider careers in business. Some of these children had never used a laptop before this project. The king was impressed by their progress and humorously acknowledged that they were learning faster than he was. One girl, Ivy, thanked the king, noting that the program had enabled them to network and meet many individuals, including the king himself. During his visit, King Charles also admired a bird feeder made from plastic water bottles and was particularly interested in a group using sustainable methods to nurture seedlings for crops like tomatoes and guava. He recognized the importance of such efforts in supporting President Ruto's goal of planting 15 billion trees, emphasizing the need for a continuous supply of seedlings. Erna Grass, the chief executive of the Santa Africa Foundation, a partner charity of PTI, shared her thoughts about a group of young Kenyan students who traveled a long distance to Nairobi. She highlighted that 3/4 of the group had endured a 16-hour bus journey from the far north of the country. These students, she noted, had never seen a full-length mirror and were experiencing amenities like hot water from a shower for the first time during their stay. They also have the luxury of having a bed to themselves, a rare experience in their lives. Grass relayed the sentiments of one of the students, who expressed amazement at being on the other side of the equation, where important people were now paying attention to them. It was a stark reversal from their usual roles. Will Straw, the chief executive of PTI, discussed the purpose of their Enterprise Challenge program. It aimed to inspire young people to consider entrepreneurship as a means of finding meaningful employment. In Kenya and many parts of Africa, demographic pressures were making it increasingly challenging to secure formal jobs in the labor market, he explained. During her visit to Kenya, Queen Elizabeth encouraged children to explore the world like they do in books, after participating in a lively storytime session at Eastlands Library in Nairobi. She sat with 14 children who eagerly read passages from Lion and Mouse by Catalina Echeverri. The Queen, visibly delighted, applauded their efforts and offered words of encouragement to the young readers. Mary Kinyanjui, representing the Kenyan National Library Service, noted that the Queen's visit served as an endorsement for children to continue reading and explore the world through literature. The Queen also met the founders of BookBank, a Kenyan charity dedicated to transforming public libraries into palaces for people. She engaged with local performers, viewed the library's giant chessboard, and greeted the 2021 Queen's Commonwealth Essay Competition winner, Ms. Kayla Bosire. Neil Wagon, the UK High Commissioner to Nairobi, expressed the enthusiasm and joy that the royal visit had generated among Kenyans, citing the strong ties between Kenya and the UK. Kenya was chosen as the first Commonwealth destination for the King's official visit, given the significant relationships and shared interests between the two nations, including counterterrorism, climate change, and trade. Wigan acknowledged that while some individuals advocated for reparations and an apology for Britain's historical treatment of the Mau Mau rebels in the 1950s, the majority of Kenyans focused on building a positive future and valued the visit for strengthening the bilateral relationship. The King and Queen's visit to Kenya marked their first to a Commonwealth country, aiming to enhance the UK's ties with Kenya through the soft diplomacy of the royal family. It coincided with Kenya's celebration of its 60th independence anniversary from Britain. Charles and Camilla held meetings with Kenyan officials, demonstrating a forward-looking approach during their visit. President Ruto, who extended the invitation to the British monarch, emphasized the importance of the royal visit in shaping the future. However, Charles, known for his diplomatic skills in handling international affairs, was determined to address pertinent issues during the trip. The banquet was anticipated as the platform for his first major public address, reflecting his belief that people's voices should be heard and acknowledged at the highest levels. They stated that His Majesty would approach the subject with great diplomacy, humanity, and humility, much like he did during state visits to France and Germany, where the UK's relationships had faced challenges for various reasons. He is known for his exceptional use of language and deep personal engagement with all communities, qualities that can help mend historical wounds with warmth, understanding, and utmost sensitivity. In many instances, it's more about listening than talking. Often people simply want to be heard and for the wrongs of the past to be acknowledged at the highest levels, which is entirely justified. While the Kenyan government primarily wishes to focus on celebrating the present and building the future during this visit, recognizing the symbolic importance of the past is a crucial step in renewing existing friendships and sharing ambitions for our two great nations. Furthermore, Charles will touch upon this issue during other undisclosed engagements for security reasons. The King and Queen are embarking on their state visit to Kenya, scheduled from today until November 3. Charles's Deputy Private Secretary, Chris Fitzgerald, emphasized that the monarch would acknowledge the more painful aspects of the United Kingdom and Kenya's shared history, including the 1952 emergency or Mau Mau revolt, especially as Kenya approaches its 60th anniversary of independence. The British colonial presence in Kenya began formally in 1895 when white settlers were granted extensive tracts of fertile farmland, eventually making Kenya a British colony in 1920. However, in 1953, a state of emergency was declared by the British due to strikes and violent opposition led by the Mau Mau Party, triggered by growing discontent over the dispossession of Kenyan lands and the lack of political rights. The Kenya Human Rights Commission reported that 90,000 Kenyans suffered execution, torture, or mutilation during Britain's harsh crackdown. The country ultimately achieved independence in November 1963 during Queen Elizabeth's reign. In 2013, the British government issued a historic statement of regret over the torture and other forms of ill treatment inflicted by the colonial administration, and they provided compensation of £19.9 million to approximately 5,200 Kenyans for human rights abuses. Despite this, Kenyan activists continue to demand an apology and reparations for their immense suffering under British rule. As recently reported by the Daily Mail, King Charles will become the first member of the royal family to acknowledge Britain's mea culpa. Despite the painful history, the two nations have enjoyed a warm relationship since gaining independence, and it is hoped that this state visit will further strengthen their ties. It's worth noting that this visit was requested by Kenya's President Ruto, who is eager to focus on their shared future. A Buckingham Palace reception for the Kenyan diaspora in the UK, held last week, demonstrated the excitement and optimism surrounding the upcoming trip. Elizabeth Kangeth, a Barking and Dagenham councillor who has been in the UK for 20 years and was named after the late Queen Elizabeth, expressed her perspective. "We have changed as countries since independence. Things happened that shouldn't have, but life has moved on, and we are glad that we are both moving together forwards. There is a lot of affection between the two countries, and I am very proud of the way His Majesty is embracing Kenya. He will receive a very warm welcome." Dear friend, if you like everything new about the royal family and don't want to miss all the novelties, subscribe to our channel and like it. By doing so, you take part in our development. We work for you.